Well, that's better. I could take all of them this size or bigger. That'd be fantastic. Guten gardening, everybody. Well, to say that these might be less than ideal harvesting conditions might be the understatement of the year. We're out here, the wind is blowing about 15 to 25 miles an hour in gusts. It just stopped raining for the first time in 2+ days. I gotta say something here. We wanted all this rain at the beginning of the summer, not when I'm trying to harvest sweet potatoes. But I've got 5 different areas where I've got to harvest sweet potatoes. I'm going to focus on one, of course, in this video. But I got a lot of harvesting I got to get done, especially now that all this rain has fallen over the last couple of days. And you know, when rain comes at the end of the growing season, there's that danger of sweet potatoes splitting. So even though it's not ideal to be out here, I'm excited to get in here and see what we got in this long raised bed. So this is a 12-foot long raised bed. It's about 18 inches tall and about 2 feet wide, and you can see we've got some tomatoes in here, and just like last year we grew tomatoes right alongside these sweet potatoes. And this season I planted 2 different varieties in here. I actually put some stones with some permanent marker in here for you to see. These are Beauregard to the left of the bed, and on the right hand side of the bed we've got some Vardaman sweet potatoes. So 2 different varieties of sweet potatoes that we're harvesting out of this bed this season. So one thing I'm going to have to deal with here are these end of season tomatoes. You can see they're all fallen over. Some of these are cracking because of the cold, because we've definitely had some pretty cold evenings here. But I got to get these out of here, and I'll come back through and I'll harvest the ones that I can, the ones that I can save from those tomatoes, the ones that haven't cracked too much. And then I'll get down in here and we'll see where we're connected with these sweet potatoes. One thing I can tell is everything's just a little bit chaotic in here. I'm not 100% sure how well the sweet potatoes are going to do in this bed this season, but hopefully better than last season. We didn't do too poorly in here last season. We did get a decent amount of vole damage then. One of the things that you should know about sweet potatoes, if you're growing them, this variety is a vining variety, this Beauregard sweet potato. And so as the different nodes come along here and touch soil as they're growing, they'll start to put down roots. So you could actually, if you had a long enough growing season, you could have that sweet potato plant really spread out. Of course, here in Zone 5, Wisconsin, our growing season isn't as long as all that. So we'll typically just see results here at the main location where we planted our slip. Now, if I look down in this mix, it looks like we're pretty dry underneath. And one of the things that tells me about this particular mix that we have in here is that we need to do something to allow everything to flow a little bit better, to make it so that it's, you know, the water is able to travel through the mix rather than just the top layer. There's a present from our squirrels, one out of many that I've harvested this season. But that being said, let's see how we did in here. You know, I don't know, again, the first season we grew in here, we didn't see much of any results. Let me pull this out of here. And you can see all that was developed from this single slip here. And I think I broke off where we were attached down below to a couple of things, but that's not a lot of development in here. And one of the worries I had coming into this season, this growing season, was whether or not this bed was fertilized enough for us to see any decent results. I mean, we did get pretty good results last year. If I dig down here far enough though, well, I'm starting to feel something, but I'm way down in here before I'm feeling anything at all. But can you see that down in there? But besides the worms that are crawling everywhere because of all this rain, they're right there at the top, I can actually see a few sweet potatoes way down in here. And this one looks to be pretty decent, but I'm a good 8 or 10 inches at least down below the top of this mix. Now, one of the nice things about a bed like this is I can easily move around in here because this stuff is super easy to work through because we have complete control over it. There you go. There's our first Beauregard sweet potato out of here, and that's pretty tiny, but it's way down in there. Way down in there. All right, let's see. That can't be the way this harvest goes with these really small ones. Let's see if we can get a little bit better results. So let's see if this second sweet potato slip, again, the other thing that might have happened a little bit here, as I pull this one right out, is these tomatoes got pretty substantial during this growing period. So I'm wondering if, there's another nice worm, I'm wondering if they shaded out some of our growth here. But more than anything, I think the lack of water running through this mix, that's got me troubled a little bit here. Because again, it shouldn't be, after all this rain, I mean, not that it's a bad thing because I don't want these to rot, but after all this rain, you would expect, or at least I would expect, the water to be running through all the way down instead of just that top layer. So then that makes me think, if I was watering this during the growing season, and I did water this quite a bit, was I actually getting water to where it needed to be? Well, let's see. Here's a couple more from this same slip right there, but they're all about the same size. They're all single, maybe less than a single serving, and we would expect to see more than that because these have all been in the ground for about 115 days. That's plenty of time for these sweet potatoes to develop. Now, I've been doing some reading on whether or not tomatoes make good companion plants to sweet potatoes, and it seems like there's some evidence out there to say they don't make the best companions, but we didn't really suffer, or we didn't see our production suffer last season when we grew them together. Okay, I feel a whole bunch right down in here. Let me see if I can dig this mix away. But man, I would love to say I'm about to uncover some gigantic sweet potatoes. You can see the distance here in terms of planting. We've got about a foot in between each one, so I gave them plenty of room. That's a little bit better. That's a little bit better. Let's see if we can up the ante here a little bit with these sweet potatoes. This one feels nicer. There you go. All right, if you've experimented around with companion planting, what would you recommend as a good companion plant to sweet potatoes? Something that's going to encourage them to continue growing while not taking those same nutrients that they need away from them during the growing process. Because while these are beautiful sweet potatoes in terms of overall appearance, they're definitely not substantial sweet potatoes. I think we did better, so far, with our green stalk sweet potato harvest. When we initially put this bed together, when we did the initial layout of this bed, well, that's better. I could take all of them this size or bigger. That'd be fantastic. But we laid a whole bunch of limbs and all kinds of stuff at the bottom of this, because you can probably imagine 18 inches of depth, 12 inches of width, and about 2 feet across. That's a lot of fill for a bed. And so 1, 2. So while over time we've been able to add compost and other things to this bed, at the initial, the outset of this bed, we used a whole bunch of that limbs and leaves and such at the very bottom. So that while that was breaking down, I was taking a whole bunch of the nitrogen away from the rest of the crops in here. So I think our first year, our nutrient value in this mix wasn't that high. I will say though that I did come through and I did add some vermiculite. You can kind of see some of it here. There's little white specks, some vermiculite in here, and some perlite. The perlite's the whiter stuff, to try to make it so that this was, easier for the rainwater to get down through this mix. And I just think I didn't add nearly enough. Although at this end of the bed, oh, it looks like I broke one off here. At this end of the bed, it does seem like the water has traveled down farther. So that makes me think that maybe things are a little bit uneven in terms of the mix in here. And that's something I have to keep in mind as well. You don't want to have an uneven mix if you're trying to get some consistent results. That's something that should be, I think, probably pretty obvious. Consistent results require a lot of different types of consistency here. That's better. Still not really blown up the way we'd like. So I'm thinking, I did come out and feed these once, but I think there's just some nutrient deficiencies here as well. That being said, this particular slip had a couple of nice ones. I broke this one because it was so far down in there, but a couple of nice sweet potatoes off of that one. All right, based on where the stone is located, it looks like we should have 2 more of these Beauregard slips to harvest here. I haven't been too careful about detaching from what's underneath, simply because the connection hasn't been very large for some of these. All right, this one feels on the surface like a pretty nice sweet potato. I keep getting these massive gusts of wind out here, but they're up against my back, so hopefully that's not impacting the sound as I'm harvesting here. That's a key. I know it's not exactly nice to have a whole bunch of wind sounds playing whenever I'm talking or when I'm harvesting. It's not really nice on the ears. It's not something you can handle, you know, not do too much about, other than a decent microphone system. I guess that's one of the things, and I like growing food indoors. Oh no, I broke a nice one off, it looks like here. I like growing food indoors, so don't get me wrong. That's one of the few extra pluses, we'll call it, of growing indoors that is superior, I would say. Ooh, nice. Superior to growing outdoors. Is just don't have to deal with the wind. Instead, you have to deal with the heating unit, depending on where you're growing. That's our experience anyway. All right, that's it. That should be it. And now we should be able to move on to our Vardamans. You know, one thing I didn't mention about this bed is the planting here was not my initial planting. It was a little bit later in the season. It's still been over 100 days, as I mentioned earlier in the video, but that's something to keep in mind too. It is a place where we do have some high expectations though. Let's see what we got. Bring this up nice and slowly here. I'll move this tomato. Here we go. Let's see what kind of size we get. Not too bad. Not too bad for this one. You can see the original slip right here. Not a ton of roots headed out from it though, so we'll see if there's anything else down in here. You can see the difference here between the Beauregard, the color, especially the outside skin color of the Beauregard versus the Vardaman. It's a much lighter color. This is all that this entire slip developed into. That is surprising to me. There's really not a ton of development off that one. If I see something like that, it's not going to be surprising that there wasn't, you know, that there were so few sweet potatoes attached to it. I need to see more growth and development. All right, this one definitely looks a little bit better. It's definitely a more robust stem to it. What will it mean? I don't know. I guess we'll find out here in a second. Ooh, that's nicer. Ooh, that's all curled up. It's like they didn't even send the roots down very deep at all, though. That's right there, what, 2 inches down? This kind of looks like a snake, doesn't it? It's got to be more attached to this one. I'm pretty sure there's got to be more. But again, at this point, I think this feels like the micro harvest part of this video. Oh, there we go. No, there's some better ones right here, I think. Decent size. Okay, it's all relative, right? Better in terms of, there's a whole bunch that are about the same size, but oh, they're still not huge. Still not huge. I'm gonna do a soil test on this. I'm gonna do a soil test on this before the next planting, because I can feel a whole bunch in here from this one slip. I mean, this slip actually had a lot of potential, one right after the other here, but they're all this smaller size. So what does that say? I mean, that I'm going to do a soil test, see what the problem is, see where we were lacking. Let me show you all of the sweet, there's another one right there. Let me show you all the sweet potatoes we got from this, and I'll have you do a little bit of an imagining as to what this single slip could have produced. What it could have produced, because I think you're going to see the potential is huge. All right, take a look at this. This is all from that one slip. All these sweet potatoes from that one slip. This is the biggest one, decent size, but probably each of these at least half the size, if not smaller, of what they could have been. Well, I tell you what, if this were still fishing weather, which for me it's not really fishing weather this time of year, I've found so many worms in here. I imagine if I asked my daughter to go fishing right now, though, she'd still probably jump at the chance. She really loves fishing. There's so many worms in here. That's such a good sign, though. We love that aspect of this. finding all those worms. There's another underdeveloped sweet potato slip where, I mean, it just maybe got to a maximum of about a foot in size. I think this one's a little bit nicer. It's still not huge, but I think this is a little bit nicer plant. Yeah, let's uncover this one. See how far down it goes. This looks like it could be one of our bigger sweet potatoes from this harvest. Not massive, but a good size. Here we go. Yeah, that's really nice. I'd take a whole bunch just like that. I really would. I'll take anything at this point, though. To be honest, I'm looking forward to some good winter sweet potatoes, meaning eating sweet potatoes is I think sweet potatoes are a comfort food. I don't know, what do you think? Sweet potatoes a comfort food to you? They just bring back so many memories. Sweet potato casserole. I don't know about you, but I think sweet potato pie is better than pumpkin pie. I've expressed my opinion. Feel free to disagree. But it brings back a lot of memories. And so I look forward to that when I'm eating sweet potatoes. All right, this is another nice one right here off that same plant. All right, yep, you can tell in part by how well that plant has started developing as to how well the sweet potatoes are gonna look underneath, how good they are, you know, quality, size. If you didn't get much development at all, and that's one of the things I noticed with some of the varieties this season, if you didn't get much development up above, you're probably not gonna see much in the way of results down below. This is off of the next sweet potato plant. Well, I'm not sure what just happened there. I don't know what I missed, but I didn't see a single sweet potato off that vine, and it looked like it was in pretty good shape. Well, here we are down to the last two. I just pulled this one off. It looks like there's another decent one right here. Again, these are not substantially massive sweet potatoes. We've done better. So I'm thinking it's the initial growth period where some of these suffered a little too much. You know, they just didn't get a good start. And then it seems like there's some nutrient deficiency here. So as I said, one of the things we're going to do to try to improve this for next season, we're going to do a nice soil test in here, see what nutrients we are missing, where we're lacking, so that we don't have to deal with this again. I don't want to have another experience out here where we get such small sweet potatoes. I'll take another experience out here where, once again, in another of our garden plots, we don't have vole damage. I'll take that all day long. So don't get me wrong. I'm not going to complain. I'm going to enjoy these. As a family, we're going to eat these up. So don't get me wrong there. But I'd like to grow some bigger sweet potatoes in these beds. I tell you what, if I zoom up really close, they look pretty big, as that's where you can't get perspective. But as soon as I put my hand in here and you see the biggest one from our Vardamans, and then you see one of the bigger ones from our Beauregard, you see the reality of the size of this harvest. And they're all nice. They're all healthy. They're all going to be fun and delicious to eat. There's no doubt about that in my mind. It's just not nearly enough, not nearly as many as we'd like. I'm not going to be negative at all on this. I'm just going to say, we know what we got to do. We got to get out here and make sure that this soil is better draining. We got to also make sure that the nutrient level in this soil is good. And I think, and we've talked about this a little bit, but one of the things we might have to do is to work on some sort of irrigation system for some of our beds here as well, because that's not something we've really done. We did a little bit over in our roost out area, but it wasn't the best setup. So maybe that's something we'll look into as well for next season. Well, hey, we hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, don't forget to give us a like, leave us a comment, remember to share and subscribe, and most importantly, remember, when you're with us, you are good to grow.